Hi, and welcome everyone to today's show. I'm Gabrielle Luma, CPA, CGMA, and the CEO of Mod Ventures. I will be facilitating this discussion with Robyn Clark, the president and CEO of Winning Wise. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about Mod Ventures. Mod Ventures is an outsourced accounting and advisory company for businesses throughout the United States. Our accounting team is entirely virtual and has been since 2014. Our passion is to help entrepreneurs organize, create, and predict their financial futures. And we truly believe that strong small businesses create financially stable communities. And we believe deeply in that. Want to be a part of that. Hi, Robyn. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you on. We've had a little bit of time working together. And I cannot thank you enough for just what you've contributed already to our organization and how we've been able to make some changes with your help. So thanks so much. Welcome.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Good to hear all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's great. So, Robyn, the audience does not know you. So clearly, we want to know more about you and tell us how you got started in change leadership.
I mean, I've been working at it for so long. It's been a big part of what we do. I founded and lead a company called Winning Wise, and we do organization and talent development. So we help organizations become more effective. And whenever you're trying to become more effective, it means you're going to be doing things differently. And some of that difference can be structural, cultural, or people related. So change is kind of always on the agenda whenever you're in a development mode. And that is our passion, our thing. For me, it's my hobby and my company. I just love this stuff. And I think it's really cool to think about. And, a lot of our work focuses in the personal and leadership development space. And though that is always related to the organizational objectives that people are trying to achieve. And those are constantly moving based on, economic challenges or company needs. So, people have to be ready and able to adapt to that. So that's really how leading people through change became a huge passion. And I also noticed that there just wasn't a lot of work really in that space. There wasn't a lot of development happening for leaders about what it really takes to lead change. Tons for managing change, not as much for leading people through change. So that's where we do a lot of our focus.
The way that the world is functioning now, there is the need to move even faster through change. And so, having somebody like yourself really support an organization in order to make that happen is just super valuable, because nothing happens unless things change, right?
Right.
So you have to be moving in that direction.
Right. I think, for tons of years, a lot of time, there's an emphasis on change management. We know when we put a new system in place, or, we're going to change from a product company to a service company. We know we have to do change management. But what people fail to think about is what's the change leadership involved? How do you move? How do you rally and move the people to really be engaged in what the change is? It's not enough to just make the change and do the communication planning. There is so much more that has to happen to bring the people along with you. And that's the nuance that we really try to help people understand.
I love how you pointed that out. There's a difference between putting in process and saying, this is what we're changing,
right,
from the actual behavior and teaching people to change.
Exactly. How do you get the most of those changes? How do you make sure that they're embraced? And then people are continually looking for ways to change on top of that, right? To continually make it better. So that's what the leadership piece is really all about. It's about getting out in front. It's about rallying and moving and energizing people into kind of a new future or whatever it is you're trying to create.
I think I saw some ridiculously low amount of change initiatives that are actually fully completed without actually using, some of these tools and behavior change support in order to make that happen, because very few changes actually are, really successful.
I mean, there's just tons of data that say a solid 70% of change initiatives generally fail.
Wow.
Those can be big ones or small ones. There's a lot of cost involved in that. Generally, when you're trying to align your leadership team, like if you have an actual leadership team and you're aligning them for change, usually at least a third of them are not on the same bus. And so it takes work to be able to create that alignment and create that movement. And if people aren't on the bus together, there's no way the whole change initiative is going to be effective, but ordering people to get on the bus is not effective either.
Right.
You've got to do more than stop the bus and require people to get on it. That just does not do it. So then what are the options? What are the choices, and how do people do that becomes the
Yeah.
question, right?
I love how you said that, the authoritarian leadership um, personality is not going to be super, super successful if again, you're just ordering people to do it. So
Yeah,
it's not like their heart's not in it. It's not likely to be
there's
very
better
successful.
strategies. Yeah.
Yeah, so much better to do that. So I love that we're talking about this. I think this is so, so important. What are some of the common mistakes that organizations that try to implement change make? And how do you avoid those?
What we were just talking about. They don't have a plan at all and they just push. They just push or like force the change. That's
Yeah.
one big mistake. It never works. Another one is they realize they can't just push and force, but if they think a communication plan is enough, that's
Right.
another really big mistake. Another really big mistake people make is just simply not listening, and they see objections to the change as resistance instead of feedback. So they see them as kind of anti the company or anti progress. And they, a lot of times, will just kind of cast those folks aside, even though they still work there. They're sort of pushed out to the side, as opposed to saying, maybe they're trying to help me. Maybe they're offering some feedback that would make all of this change initiative more successful. Opening yourself up to listening to that doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It also doesn't mean you have to action on it, but at least you understand the playing ground, because often the view, from a senior leader to someone who's working in your organization about the changes can be completely and utterly different. And what they often think about are the implications of the changes that you're creating rather than just the change itself. And so not listening can be a big mistake. And then not adapting based on what you learn,
Right.
and choosing to do it more, or choosing not to do it in a more inclusive sort of way.
For myself, and I think probably a lot of other, small business owners, the resistance is really, really difficult because you see those people as obstacles to where you want to go instead of partners in where you want to
Right.
go.
Right.
And so that mistake is, I think, very, very common because then you're just frustrated with
Right,
everyone.
right,
You
right. You
know?
see them as anti the company, anti-me, anti-change, anti-progress. You see them as that, as opposed to protectors, helpers, continuous improvers. We tend to sort of throw them in this bucket that they're working against me and they're not working with me or for me. And that's a huge mistake. Because, oftentimes they are really trying to be helpful. They really are trying to protect. They really are trying to make it better. But they get judged pretty quickly and unfairly
Yeah,
when we are in a, forward motion with blinders on and we're not willing to look
right.
around. It can be a huge mistake and can cost you what you're really trying to do.
Right,
Yeah,
which makes you not successful. So I think,
exactly.
really at the end of the day, it really benefits us to consider all of those activity, whatever behaviors those are, sometimes they're good feedback. So
Right,
to slow
right.
down and like you said, ask more questions. So I
Right. But exactly. Sometimes when people hear that feedback, though, they spend more time discounting it, telling
yeah,
people why they're wrong, as
yeah,
opposed to saying things like, tell me more, help me understand. Where do you think we could get in trouble? What would you suggest that we do in order to bridge the gap between where we're trying to go and what you think, is not going to work about this method? Like,
yeah,
help us get it right. Bring the people in with you. If you
Yeah,
don't think they're a good fit for your company, then make a whole different decision. That's fine. But
right.
don't keep people in your company and then ostracize them to the corner. That is just a
Yeah,
complete and utter waste of energy, money. It's a culture destroyer.
yeah,
So it's really important to be thinking about how to use their different perspectives and use their resistance to make you better.
right.
Even though I know in those moments, it can feel like you're eating up my day here.
Yeah,
It can feel
yeah.
like we're never going to get there, but you really actually will get there faster,
Mhm.
bringing the people on board than pushing them off in the corner.
I think this is a perfect leading question to, what will help leaders be successful in taking in that type of feedback. And so, what role does emotional intelligence play in leading through change, and how can leaders cultivate it? I mean, not just in their staff, but also in themselves, so that they can grow and take that feedback.
Yeah, I think emotional intelligence, emotional savviness is so critical because number one, when change is going on, we're all emotional.
Yeah.
Period. I don't care who you are, what you are, how you try to hide it, how you don't. There's emotion that's going on in all of that. I mean, we have feelings all day long. That is completely and utterly normal. Sometimes our emotions are not frustrated or upset. Sometimes the emotions are a huge sense of urgency. We're trying to go faster and faster and faster, and that's why we're pushing people. But either way, there's emotion that's there. So being able to regulate your own emotion is really important in being able to lead change. If you're not regulating your own personal emotion, if you're not disciplined in that process, it will make it harder for you to listen. It'll make it more likely that you are pushing people away. It'll make it more likely that you are trying to go forward without looking around and without taking in the landscape and the possibilities. You're probably going to find yourself in a ditch.
Right.
Highly likely if you're not really taking charge and practicing discipline with your own emotion. Now, also how you talk about the change, right? Usually when we create change, it's because we're trying to solve a problem,
Yeah.
right? So when we're trying to solve a problem, what we're then trying to do is how are we explaining the problem? Are we blaming other people? Are we denying certain things? The more that we do that when we're trying to describe the problem and changing it, the more we're going to push people away. Versus what we're really trying to do is create a better future here for you, for me. We're trying to improve and
Yeah.
grow and do something different. I'm trying to take care of you or appreciate you. So the more you can use really good ways to explain what you're trying to do, that too, though, takes emotional intelligence. You have to think carefully about how you are projecting your own emotion, number one.
Yeah.
Because everybody in your company is probably going to have some emotion about it too. And so you're going to have to help regulate that emotion. And that's probably only going to happen with listening and
Yeah.
with validating and with understanding and with planning together. There's so many things that happen when we are capable of doing that little but big stuff.
Yeah.
That can make a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah. I can say personally from my own experience, I went through one of your workshops, or your shortened workshops
It was a small
with,
one, yeah.
yes, a tiny one with Arizona Growth Advisors, and then spent an hour with you. And I can say that, I was having some of those feelings, some of those emotions about, the change, I guess the behaviors that we were seeing, it wasn't really helping us move forward. And I really wanted to understand as a leader how I could better handle that and prepare myself, and what was I doing that I wasn't able to, move people more quickly. And
Mhm,
so, it really didn't take a whole lot of time, but just sitting down with you and realizing that yes, everybody has emotions about where we're going, but also what the bottom line, what is in it for them? Like helping
mhm,
helping the company values and the personal values kind of come together so that you can move that change along more quickly. And I think that it's taken me, some time to kind of work through that. But I can say from our on-site just recently, wow, we all came away just by doing a few of those exercises and getting clear on goals and what they'd like to see happen and where they see themselves in the company, is we all came away really energized and excited. And I can see things moving much more quickly, even in the last week. It's just amazing.
I think that's a lot of what gets forgotten in change. I always say to leaders, there's three things you really have to do in order to be able to move change forward. And
Mhm.
you did the third one on that list, which is so important to do. The first one is conviction. You got to care about it and you got to want it. Because if you don't care about it and you don't want it, and there's some way around it, people will find a way around it. So conviction is critical and it has to come first. You got to hang on to it like a dog with a bone. Doesn't
Yeah,
mean you get dictatorial and all that kind of stuff, but you have to have conviction. The
right.
second thing you really have to have is alignment. You've got to bring a small nucleus group of people together that and really just create understanding and alignment about what's changing, why, and how you need their help. And it might be 3 people or 5 people, but it's a small team. It
Yeah.
could be it could be up to 10 people if it's a large company, but it's a small kind of executive level team that you've really got to work hard to create that alignment. The
Mhm.
third place in all of that is inclusion, where you've got to really bring people together. And when you're explaining what you want for the company and what you're looking for in the changes, you also need to spend time on the individuals. What are you looking for? What's important to you? What is working for you at this company right now? What is not working that we really could do so much better? What needs do you have that are not getting met? How can we build some thinking around that into the changes that we're creating? Because that is what creates the energy for people when they feel like their future is going to be brighter, when they feel that their skills and capabilities are going to grow, so they have personal growth happening, when all of that looks brighter and better for them, or they feel like they're going to do more meaningful work, or
Yeah,
they feel like they're going to learn something significant, or they feel more connected.
right.
Any of those things can make a huge difference to so many, but when they feel like their needs are getting met, they're like, let's go. What are we going to do? And you don't have to push and force. You can just let them come along with you.
Yeah.
So it's conviction, alignment, and inclusion. You really do need to go in that order because you need a small group of people to help you bring everybody else into the game. But what you're describing that you did in your team meeting is super cool. And it's a fantastic example of inclusion.
Yeah.
And because you're trying to help people figure out what's in it for me
Right.
and how can we make this place better and how can that be a great benefit to you and to
Exactly.
our customers and everything else we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing we kind of brought to the meeting was that some of the changes that we had done since 2020. So 2020 was a few years ago, but we were in a different place in 2020, and we actually went through our SWOT analysis and were able to say, wow, we really have made some really great
Yeah,
strides towards making this
that's
place
cool.
better. So there were some really cool things that came out of our onsite, and they were able to see more. Not all of them had been here since 2020.
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
got to see, well, okay, we care about making this place better, and we have
yeah.
been since 2020. So it
It's
was a
cool.
really
Yeah.
good experience.
And to
Yeah,
look at achievements, I mean, that's something people can feel proud of and a
yeah,
big part of, and to realize that not every one of those achievements happened without a little drama or trauma every now
yeah,
and again, or differences of opinion or whatever.
yes,
But I think that can be helpful in people being able to see that continuing to move forward is what they want to do, where they want to go. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was really powerful for us. So I can hear this like question in small business owners' minds about how change leadership may not be for them. And so I really want to hear what your advice is for small business owners who might have, lesser resources than larger organizations, but they still want to support kind of a change management process, but then they go back and forth. Is it worth it? Does it really apply to me?
Number one, for us small business people, of which I am one, change is constant, right? We are
Yes.
constantly changing what we're offering in the market. We're constantly evaluating if we're doing it the best that we can. We're always looking for more options, et cetera. We may not be making like big structural changes and, changing it. We may not be doing that if we have 5 people, we can only have so many. I mean, you might make some changes to roles, but you may not be doing as much of that. Now, you could do something crazy like bring a new system in, like all sorts of small businesses are trying to figure out how to have the right, financial systems in place, how to have the right sales systems in place. So you might bring that in. You might be asking people to make some changes in their behavior.
Yeah.
And the thing about change leadership is it isn't about a program. It isn't about doing more tasks. It's about doing what you do a little differently. So in other words, you're probably going to show up for work and spend all day with your people on Monday, right? But as you spend time engaging with them and in meetings with them or doing work with them, you're asking different questions. You're listening to what they're sharing back with you in a different way. You're implementing some of the ideas that they're throwing out there. So it isn't like you are in bringing a program in, you're just deciding to show up as a leader with conviction, willing to create alignment and willing to do inclusion, to bring people into the party. You're also willing to navigate the resistance that people might have and see it in a positive light, as opposed to seeing it negative. I don't care whether you're in a big company or a little company, we're going to feel resistance around us when we're asking people to do things different.
Yeah.
That's normal, right? Because they're like, what are you talking about? Why are we doing that? Well, how are we supposed to do that? There's kind of a whole spiral that we sort of go through when people mention change to us. Well, maybe we could try it, I guess, and somebody else is over here going, let's go. How do we make it happen? So to move people through that kind of spiral of emotion from what are you talking about to let's go, it's going to take kind of navigating the resistance and being able to see that as feedback. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it's a bunch more work. I really see it as just doing what you do slightly differently,
Right.
staying open-minded, cultivating listening as an important skill,
Mhm.
continuing with conviction. It isn't like you lighten up on conviction just because you're listening. Those two can exist very happily,
Yeah.
next to each other. Growing people, coaching people, offering them feedback, all those kinds of things help change happen and help change stick.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like most of my job is coaching. Coaching.
Yeah,
It really is a
exactly.
lot of coaching, a lot of supporting, helping them, reframe and think of things a little bit differently sometimes. So it's a big part of a small business owner's time and energy to get the people on the bus moving with you.
Absolutely.
And it's
And
so much more powerful when they
yeah,
do.
I mean, yeah, and some of the changes we're trying to do are business changes, like we're trying to change fundamentally stuff we do in our business. And
Yeah,
other changes we're trying to make are personal. Like,
yeah,
how do I get him to do this instead of that? How do I get her to see it this way versus that way? How
right,
do I get me to open up to X, right?
right,
How do I get me to think of some more innovative, different ideas and things I can do going forward? So lots of change that we're also going through is personal.
right.
You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
and so that can have just as much resistance and just as much emotion.
So I wanted to kind of finish off our discussion around change leadership in talking about some emerging trends or things that you might be seeing in the change leadership roles, or just kind of things that companies are starting to do and implement with change leadership.
I think what I do see as a trend is that companies are beginning to understand that leading change is hard
Yeah.
and they need skill and capability around it. So I
Mhm.
am seeing more movement and actually this being a topic on the table where people need skill development in order to be able to get there. We have this assessment around conviction, alignment, inclusion, lets people figure out kind of, which space do they play the best in? Where do they need to grow? I think people are realizing they need that. I also think companies are realizing they need frameworks and tools, to help people be able to navigate and figure that stuff out a little bit more as well. I think the other trend that people are, I mean, they've been saying it for a while, but really embracing it is that change is just absolutely constant.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it used to be that, you would manage the different corporate changes that were going to go on. And now that's why it's switching, in my opinion, to change leadership because there's multiples happening all at once. They're going to continue to happen. And it's because we're all shifting and adapting to try and do better. So continuous improvement is important.
Right.
And the other thing that I'm really noticing in organizations is they really do want people to think bigger. They really
Yeah.
do want to see more strategic insight so that people can identify what to change,
Yeah.
not go around changing for the sake of change, but
Right.
identify the real things that need to change in order to create the outcomes you want to create. I don't know if that was most people were on the receiving end of change, but they're really asking people at all levels to be more thoughtful about initiating.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a trend switch.
Yeah.
Or it was like, be good at adapting to the change we're bringing you.
Yes.
Now, can you be really good at figuring out what needs to change around here so that we can continue to be better?
Right.
Different.
Well, yeah, I think that's really affected how people are trying to be more transformational in their leadership styles.
Right. Exactly.
Because transformational leadership is a whole different conversation from Dan Martell, who I love, he talks about transactional leadership, and then there's transformational leadership. Transactional is you tell people what to do. There's checklists and there's everything.
Right.
But transformational leadership really is helping them think on how to solve problems. And I
Yeah.
think that's the world we live in. We need more folks focusing on
Exactly.
solutions
Yep. No
to a
question.
lot of the big problems that
Yep.
we have.
I
Yeah.
mean, another thing too, CEOs typically stay in jobs about 3 years. Your company gets a new CEO, you're going to go through change.
Yeah.
If you are a CEO, you're going to be leading change, period. The first thing, any CEO is going to come in and do is assess what's going on around here and figure out how we can do things better. They've probably already been given a mission or a mandate about some big goals and things they need to make better. So now they can figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So you have to figure that with all the moving and the shaking, that change is going to be a part of that too. So how we lead through that matters.
Well, Robyn, I just really appreciate this time that we've been able to spend together. I want everybody to be able to get a hold of you. So can you tell everyone how they can get in touch with you and maybe any other resources you have available on your website that they can?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us at our website. It's just winningwise.com or www.winningwise.com. Super easy to be able to find us that way. You can find me on LinkedIn too at Robyn Clark. It's Robyn with a Y though. So you gotta put that in there in order to find it at Winning Wise. That would be super easy. You can send me a message that way or go on our website and reach out to us, which we would love. We do a lot in the leadership and executive development space, as well as all this work in change leadership, and then helping companies with organizational effectiveness as well. But we'd love to talk with any of you if we can be helpful. That's kind of our thing.
Yeah.
So we could do it. That'd be terrific.
Thank you to all of you that are tuning in to our YouTube. If you are not already subscribed, please punch that subscribe button. We'd love to have you on a regular basis, and we'll see you next time.
All
Thanks.
right. Thanks, Gabrielle. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.